You ever wonder why some people just seem to build this lasting, solid success, while the rest of us sometimes feel, well, stuck, kind of caught in that cycle of quick fixes and burnout? Well, today we're going to explore a really old answer to that very modern problem. We're talking Miyamoto Musashi's The Book of Five Rings, and we're starting right where you have to start, with the foundation.
I mean, we've all been there, right? You're scrolling, looking for that one life hack, that magic bullet, the productivity trick that's just gonna solve everything. But let's be real, how often does that actually work? Most of the time, those shortcuts just fall apart and we end up even more frustrated than when we started. So, what's the alternative? That's what we're here to figure out.
All right, so here's what we're going to cover. We're going to look at strategy as a way of life, not just a trick. We'll get into why mastery is really a daily craft. And then we'll piece it all together to build a foundational mindset you can use for pretty much any challenge.
So let's talk about the man himself, Miyamoto Musashi. We're talking about a samurai who was undefeated in over 60 duels. I mean, think about that. But for him, true strategy wasn't just about what happened on the battlefield. No, he saw it as a complete discipline, a path you walk every single day. He just called it the way.
You know, Musashi basically saw two ways to go about things. On the one hand, you've got what he called arts for sale. You can think of it as the flashy, clickbait stuff of his time. It's all about quick wins, looking good, showing off. But then, there's the other path, the real way of strategy. And that's not about looking good, it's about being good. It's all about your internal alignment, that steady, consistent practice, treating your skills like a deep craft, not just some performance.
He had this line that just hits hard. Immature strategy is the cause of grief. And, he wasn't just talking about losing a fight. He meant that when you rely on these flimsy, half-baked tactics in your life, it leads to real problems, real pain. It's this powerful reminder that a solid foundation isn't just, a nice thing to have. It's absolutely essential. Okay, so if strategy is this big path, how do we actually, walk it? Musashi's answer is actually pretty simple, but it's really profound. He's basically saying mastery isn't some destination you just arrive at one day. Nope, it's a craft. It's something you practice day in and day out, like a master woodworker just slowly, patiently honing their skills.
I mean, just look at Musashi's own life. He won his first duel when he was just 13. By the time he was in his late 20s, he'd won over 60 of them, undefeated. But here's the crazy part. He looked back at all those victories and realized he still hadn't mastered strategy. It took him another 20 years of really deep reflection to finally get it, to understand the true way. If that doesn't tell you mastery is a marathon and not a sprint, I don't know what does.
So we can kind of break this whole path down into three main ideas. First, the basics. They're your bedrock. Every fancy advanced skill you see is really just a fundamental move done with complete focus. Second, you need high standards for yourself. Those are the stabilizers, right? They keep you grounded when everyone else is chasing hype. And third, discipline. That's the fuel. It's all those quiet hours of repetition that nobody sees. That's what builds real, lasting strength.
Musashi really loved this comparison to carpentry. And it makes so much sense, right? A master carpenter doesn't just show up and wing it. They know their tools inside and out. They understand the wood, the grain. They have a clear plan. And because of that, they build things that last, things that are true. And he's saying that's how we should approach our own lives. Okay, so this all brings us to the big question. How do we actually pull ourselves away from the temptation of those easy hacks and shortcuts? Well, this is the core of what we're talking about today. It's what I'm calling the foundation mindset. And it comes straight from Musashi's very first scroll, known as the ground book.
Think of the ground book as, well, the ground you stand on. It's the blueprint for your whole mindset. It's not about learning a bunch of specific techniques. It's about building a stable, solid base for everything else you do. It's this idea of seeing the world with total clarity, knowing the smallest little details, but also seeing the big picture, so you can build your life on principles that don't change.
So how does this actually look in the real world? Okay, let's take your work. Instead of chasing every new trend or the latest hot software, it means focusing on your core skills, really mastering them. Because, let's face it, trends fade, but deep skill, that's timeless. What about in your relationships? Well, it's about building them on that solid bedrock of trust and clear, honest communication. It's not about playing games or trying to win an argument, because genuine connection, that's the only foundation that's actually going to last.
And when it comes to your own habits, it's all about consistency over these crazy bursts of intensity. I mean, think about it. An hour of focused work every single day is going to build something way more solid than one frantic all-nighter you pull once a month. It really is that slow and steady approach that gets you there.
All right, so we've talked a lot of philosophy here, but let's get practical. How do we actually start doing this? Musashi talked a lot about the power of what he called a normal mind. And what he meant by that was a state of just calm, clear composure. So here's a really simple exercise you can try, like right now, to start building that.
And you can do this absolutely anywhere. So, first step, just observe a situation without immediately slapping a label on it, without judging it good or bad. Just see it for what it is. Second, focus completely on the one single task you have in front of you. And third, when you do act, do it deliberately, not out of haste or fear or anxiety. The whole point here is to train your mind to be calm, open, and direct. A mind that isn't cluttered with noise is ready for anything.
You see, the way of strategy isn't really about creating some grand 5-year master plan. It's simpler than that. It's about building a foundation so solid, so true, that you can take your very next step with total confidence and clarity. Because in the end, that next step, that's the only thing you really have any control over.
All right, so let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways here? First, strategy is a way of life, not a box of tricks. Second, mastery is a craft you build through steady, daily work. Third, that calm, foundational mindset, that is your single greatest asset. And finally, true victory, it's just a reflection of your own internal alignment.
And that really just leaves one final question for you to think about. What is one foundation, maybe in your work, your health, a relationship, that you can commit to building starting today? Just let that sit with you for a bit. Hey, thanks so much for joining me for part 1. Definitely check out part 2, where we're going to dive into the water book. The full series is right there in the playlist for you.